Hello, you are tuning in to the Capsule in Conversation podcast, dedicated to women and their well-being. I'm Natalie Anderson, and today I'm joined by the gorgeous Lisa Snowdon to talk just getting started, manifesting love, and looking backwards to leap forwards. So make yourself comfortable and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all, thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to have you with us. I am absolutely thrilled to be welcoming today's guest as she is a second timer here. She visited us in lockdown and now she's here in person. Having her on our TV screens, airwaves, magazine covers, she is now adding the title of author to her incredible CV with her brand new book, Just Getting Started, out now. She's the gorgeous Lisa Snowdon.
Oh, Natalie, thank you. That was gorgeous.
Oh.
So nice, as you said, to be in real life.
To be together.
To be together.
In
like
the
to get
same
your
room.
energy. Love it.
Because we did this like when we were locked up, basically.
Yeah, totally.
And, you know, we did kind of touch on quite a few things that you do talk about in this can I just say, amazing book. And I've said to you already, I literally cried from start to finish. I can't recommend it enough to people. It is just such a brilliant work of art, life, everything. You should be super proud of it.
You're making me emotional already. When you were just
going.
like doing that intro, I was like, oh my God, I actually have a book. It's unbelievable.
But I think it's the contents within that book that are so special, and you've been incredibly brave, incredibly just raw. And I think, you know, we've seen you in the public eye for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But we've always looked on afar and never really kind of known what was going on. I mean, we see that with a lot of people, but you've really put your heart and soul into this book. And tell me the moment that you decided, I'm doing this.
Well, it's so strange. So it happened really quickly, to be honest. But I feel like I've been preparing for it my whole life. You know, because as you've read the book, it's a much more personal account of. I was never meant it to be this personal. Honestly, I didn't. But last year, I kind of wrote a treatment for myself, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book. And I talk about manifesting in the book a lot.
Yeah.
And that's literally what I did. I just sat down and I started writing, and I was like, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write a book on my experiences. I'm gonna write a book about empowering women, enabling them to tackle this new phase in their life, you know, the second spring, this amazing opportunity to just go out there and do what you want to do. So I literally wrote 2 pages and I sent it out to the universe. And then at the time, I just finished MasterChef. And everybody was like, oh, you can do a cookbook. And it hadn't been announced that I was the winner of MasterChef. But before that happened, HarperCollins came to me at the agency and said they wanted to do a meeting, and she said, we really want you to write a book. And I just assumed it would be a cookbook. And she was like, no, we want you to do something on the menopause and on second spring and all the things that I've been so passionate about on my social for quite a few years now. So I think it was a combination of me thinking it first, putting it into kind of motion, sending it out there, and then it coming back to me. And so it was a quick turnaround, really.
But like you said, that manifestation process of it kind of going, right, okay. And also you've been so active in this area, as you said, for such a long time now. And it's fantastic that we are having these brilliant conversations, and we've talked a lot about it on here. And, you know, it's fantastic to see other women sharing their experiences. I think I wasn't prepared for quite how personal your book is and how...
I wasn't either.
No, it's like, but it may, like I said, I feel like you talk and you do it right at the beginning anyway, where you're like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where I'm right at the start now. I'm coming at 42 this year. We've had this conversation about those early perimenopausal kind of symptoms that you suddenly think, oh my God, am I going mental? What's happening to me? And I know for you personally, like you started that journey kind of in your early 40s as well.
Exactly the same time as you.
But feeling like, you know, being given antidepressants, being sent down. I mean, there's a part where you go and visit a doctor in Harley Street, and I was furious at this part of the book. But just having somebody else there that is putting on paper what is the experience, I can't tell you how reassuring that is. And is that kind of what you wanted with it? Did you want it to be like this hug in a way, or like gentle kind of support.
I really did. I wanted it to be like this big warm hug of reassurance that you're not going crazy, that you're not alone, that this isn't forever, that once you understand what's happening, you can make those changes, you can get that support, that advice, that help. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to get it all out there because I didn't know what was happening to me for so long. And so the last kind of 8-9 years, I've just tried to work it out myself, tried to navigate what was happening, tried to, understand the changes, hold down the relationship at the same time when I was just the most evil, nasty person to be around, depressed, low, putting on weight, all the things that we know are the more kind of common symptoms of perimenopause now. We didn't know that back then. I didn't even know what the word perimenopause was.
Crazy, isn't it?
It wasn't even around. So, I knew the word menopause, but it seemed like it was coming so much further in the future. It just seemed like not me, with like bombing to the gym and like, wanting to go out and having a glass of wine. It felt like it came maybe in my 60s or around that time. So I didn't recognize that to be happening to me when I was 42. And then the kind of years that followed with the symptoms that kind of shapeshift into different symptoms. And it's hard to put your finger on it. So I wanted to get it all out there in the book so that women could pick it up who were either late 30s, early 40s, and older, and then younger women too, so they could understand what was happening to them, and also men. Men, young boys, so they can understand the women in their lives. I want it to be an education for everybody, and just a kind of, just words of kindness and support, because I think that's what we need more than anything at this time in our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's what comes across is the kindness. So it's kind of part memoir, but then part self-help as well. So it's this kind of mix of all these different things. So it doesn't, whilst you do open up very, very much in the early part of the book, you're kind of there with all your toolkit and your try this and try that and recommendations and doctors, and so we can look at your experience and then go, okay, but there's something that we can do about it. We can actually feel empowered. And that's something that I really loved about the book, that it didn't dwell too much. Like I said, it kind of you created this solution. And it felt so inspiring.
I'm so relieved for saying that. I'm so relieved. It's exactly how I wanted it to come across.
But I think
it was like, yes, this is going to happen, but you can do this, and this might happen to you. But you know what? This isn't forever. And it was just this sort of, laying it all down on the line. That yes, there are some scary times, absolutely, but this is also a really exciting new period of your life. You just have to reintroduce yourself to yourself, kind of relearn about yourself. And that's, I'm so happy you're saying all these
Honestly,
things.
I've
got a tissue to hand, so I'm feeling a bit like having a little wipe, little dab.
It's literally like, as well, what I felt was there was a sense of almost like a purging as well, that was like right at the start. And you talk about it and you say, you've got to kind of address all these things to move past it, because you're going to get hit left, right and centre and not know about it, and it's going to evoke lots of different emotions that you might think, hold on a minute, I'd not spoken about that, I'd buried that bit, I'd moved on from that. But actually this higgledy-piggledy journey brings a lot of that to the fore, and it's kind of learning what you want to take into the next phase, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, if we can look at some of the more emotional moments of the book, one of the biggest things I think for me was when you talk about children, and that I found that again, it makes me like really emotional, because you do discuss about being pregnant twice and your experiences, and I think for any woman who's gone through either of those experiences, that I'm sure you'll talk about, it's quite triggering, but also it's quite cathartic.
Absolutely.
And is that how you felt writing it?
Yeah, no, and that's, as I said at the beginning, I didn't expect to want to open up as much. But also at the same time, I wanted to get it out. I wanted to have ownership of my past, my story. You get asked a lot in interviews about, and I have been asked a lot over the years about, why didn't you have children? What happened with the family? Why aren't you married? I didn't go down that traditional route, and it's baffled so many people for so long. So I felt like it is time to throw it all into the mix. And I don't delve really deep into it. I just kind of skim the surface just to help myself to see how what's caused some of the blockages, some of the hurt, some of the resentment, and just enabling me to move on, to get it out, like you said, like a cathartic exercise, to just tell it how it is and just to move on, because life isn't as simple as it seems, you know, and you never really know what somebody's going through. And I think that's what you said earlier as well. It's like, you don't know what people's struggles are. You don't know what they go through from day to day. You don't know what's happening. So that's why obviously kindness is so important, and understanding, and empathy, a lot of empathy. So yeah, I do talk about that, and it was really good for me. But it is, you know, it is an emotional and sensitive subject for sure. But yeah, nobody's known that about me, that I've been pregnant twice. So and I did shed a lot of tears while I was writing it.
Yeah.
But it has been really good. It's been really good and really powerful. Obviously, it's going to come up a lot, I think, now in conversations when people do read it. But it's important because, you know, not everybody has the happy ever after that they want. Not everybody has everything that they expect they're going to have, you know, and you have to come to terms with that. And that's what I have been able to do, is to really look at my life and be like, do you know what? I'm really happy and I'm really lucky. You know, no, I'm not going to be a mum, and some days it's easier than others, but I have these kids in my life. You know, I'm so lucky my sisters have got the kids. And, you know, on George's side, there's another 2 little rascals, 2 little girls who are adorable too. So 5 kids in my life that I get to snuggle and cuddle and then give back.
I was going to say, because that's another big part, you know, what you said in there about, you know, actually parents being real and parents being honest and opening up and saying, actually, do you know what? Sometimes it's really hard.
It's bloody
so
hard
actually
work.
Putting this facade up of, oh my God, parenting is la 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 la, and it's for everyone.
My kid's an angel.
and
it sleeps all through the night.
It
and you're
also,
like,
you know, as you are moving through this kind of midlife phase and kids are becoming teenagers, the struggle does get harder.
oh my God, that pressure cooker of hormones, of mum going through it, son going through it, daughter going through it, periods and perimenopause, and
all of it. It's
I
a
just
mess.
can't imagine if I would have had a teenager in the last 10 years. We would have just been fighting all the time. It would have been hideous.
I think that this is what comes across is the hopefulness from your accounts. So, you know, I've got friends in their kind of early 40s who are thinking, you know, maybe it's not their turn to have children, or like that's not an option for them now, or it's not something that they even want to do. And just the way that you kind of have presented your life with George and how exciting it is, and you know what you get to do together, and him being such a compassionate, lovely person.
I know, he's great.
For many women who are thinking, you know, oh, have I missed the boat, or is that it for me? Actually, it's very much not that. That doesn't have to be the case. I think this is something else that I took away from your book, was this brilliant kind of empowerment and inspiration for other women, whether you have children or not. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's something that I felt very much in this book. And you know, if we talk about George, because as you said, you know, you're very honest in the sense that it was difficult at the start because of your moods and maybe your hormones, and you weren't necessarily the kindest at times, but yet you really are like rock solid.
He's been unbelievably supportive. I don't know where he gets it from. He had an understanding that there was something else going on with me, which doesn't happen often, you know. And considering we'd only just got back together, you know, if you've been with your partner for years and years and years, you'd be like, hang on a minute, like what's going on with you? Like you're acting out of character. You kind of can recognize that a little bit more. But with him, like we just got back together, didn't really know the older me. But somehow he had this incredible insight where he just was like, I'm sticking by this girl. You can't push me away. And so many times I said to him, you know what, I just can't do this. I just can't do this. I just can't do this relationship thing. And he was like, you know, you can keep building up those walls, and I'll just, rather than saying I'll just bash them down, he was like, and then I'll just keep climbing over them. And it was just, his compassion is endless, and he's been incredible. I don't think I would be the person I am now. I don't think the book would have happened without him. I don't think I would have been as open potentially about my perimenopause if I hadn't had him fighting my corner, championing me, and understanding me, because he's enabled me to reconnect with myself and like who I am, regardless of all the horrible stuff I've done to him. So we'd come back from a dinner and we'd be having a lovely time, and I would just switch. I would just have. Do you have rages?
Oh God, yeah.
The rages are uncontrollable, right?
They're horrible.
Like, and you can kind of like. There's a part of you that's saying, stop, just stop, just stop,
stop talking.
And then you're like, and another thing. And it's like, you just keep going back.
And you're
like,
just going, it's like an out-of-body experience where you're like, shut up.
Just stop it, you evil cow. But then you just keep going. And it was like, and you just see this red mist just, and you'll be bringing back stuff that happened weeks ago. And like, oh God. Yeah. So, bless him. He deserves... I don't know.
It's so funny because the word that you said, I actually wrote in my notes when I was writing about it was George the Champion.
Yeah.
That's what I actually wrote in there when I was talking about him. But the fact that you manifested him and
totally.
just talk me through that as well.
So I'd gotten to rock bottom, which obviously when you read the book, it was, I'd had a miscarriage and I was in my early 40s and I didn't think I could have babies. And then I obviously got pregnant and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, this is my miracle baby. And then unfortunately I did miscarry. I did lose the baby. So I was obviously devastated and I'd hit rock bottom and in another destructive relationship, which I touch on the book too. And I got into this point where I was like, do you know what? Something has to change. Something really has to change drastically. I can't keep making the same mistakes. I have to, I'm in control of changing this. I have to change it. So I went and started therapy, and I did therapy with a counsellor, and I also did cognitive behavioural therapy as well. So trying to break those patterns, which is really powerful for anybody who's struggling with perimenopausal symptoms. It's a really good practice. It's a really good therapy. But the counsellor just said to me, you need to have a dating detox. No men, no sexting, no texting, no dating, no apps, no nothing. And I was like, okay. So then I had to really start working on myself without the distractions, which I realized I'd always just had these little flirtations and these little distractions and these really insignificant connections and pathetic validations from strangers. So, I was a couple of months in and I was doing my therapy and I was very well behaved and I was walking down the street, and where I'd usually try and oh, there's a cute guy coming there. Have a little bit of eye contact. I'd be like, no, don't look, don't
Keep
look.
your head down.
Do not pass go. Do not collect 200. I was really militant about this, right, no texting, no sexting, no thing. And then I started listening to Deepak Chopra, who I love. He's the most incredible man. And for those of you who don't know him, you can Google him, and he's a brilliant kind of manifesting life coach. There's no words for him. He's just incredible. So I started listening to a lot of his teachings, and I'd go to bed with him every night on my phone, and I'd fall asleep. And I started doing that for a couple of months whilst I was doing the therapy. And then something shifted in me, and it's a really profound shift where you just start liking who you are a bit more. You just start having a bit more kindness, a bit more understanding, a little bit more patience with yourself. And I started to make better choices. I started to work out more, better food, really focusing on sleep, not going out late, just really sort of resetting myself. And then I started to realize the relationship that I perhaps wanted to attract in my life. So it was more because I needed to know what I didn't want in order to move forward to what I did want. So I do believe that all that stuff happened for a reason. But I was able to kind of look back and reflect and be and sort of categorize all of those men who'd harmed me, hurt me, taken me for granted, and kind of see their characters and their personalities and jump forward to somebody completely different who I wanted to attract. And so I started to be looking up at this ceiling every night in bed, and I'd make this invisible list on the ceiling, and I'd say, okay, so I want him to be, and in the beginning it was just a few words. I want him to be kind, I want him to be loving, I want him to be patient, I want him to be handsome, of course. It was and all of the shallow stuff. But I started to make this mental list, and every night the list got longer, and every night new words would come to me, new characteristics, new personality traits. I want him to have a great relationship with his mum. I want him to be ambitious. I want him to be, and it was just da-da-da-da-da-da. And every night I'd start from the beginning and I'd list kind, loving, patient, and then the list would get longer and longer. And then I did that for about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it for 6 months. And I think that people have told me this before. They're like, just write a list of what you want. Just write a list of what you want. And so you can write it and you can keep looking at it and you can keep adding to it in a journal. I'd recommend that for sure, especially if you're on a rut and you want to change your outlook, because then you start feeling it. Like, it's unbelievable. You write it, you make it real. Even though my list was just, it wasn't a physical list. It wasn't a, what do you call it? It wasn't, I didn't write it, but I had it on the ceiling.
You had it, you knew it.
And I could see it, and I would just
visualised
it. And it was this long list, and it kept getting longer. And then I got a phone call from a friend out of the blue, and I was just about to go. I was working at Capsule at the time. It was coming to the end of my time at Capsule, late 2015, and I was going to switch on the Christmas lights somewhere. It was like a big event, and I picked up the phone to her, and she's an amazing makeup artist called Amanda Grossman, and she was like, "Barbs," and I was like, "Hi, Barbs," and then we had this little conversation. She said, "Look, there's this guy that I think that you used to know him back in the day, and he wants to go out with you, and George's name just came to me out of the blue, and I hadn't thought of him for years and years and years. And that's the power of manifestation. And it was George's everything that was on that list. He's kind, he's loving, he's supportive, he's ambitious, and I also said, I want him to be able to cook. I want him to like my food. I want him to find me funny. I want him to be funny. It was like all of the stuff that he is just like literally manifesting back into my life at the right time.
At the right time, I was going to say it was the right time. And like
had to be.
We were saying before about purging all that other stuff.
Yeah.
To really kind of move forward into this second spring, as we discussed. I know like you're a big believer in Eastern medicine, Eastern thought processes, and actually moving into this next phase and having somebody like George to do that with, to travel with, and to have that understanding. It is amazing because not everybody does have that. People that have been in relationships for a long time that don't want to break a cycle, as you said, or they're kind of stuck in a rut. For you to be in this process now of actually going, right, I've dealt with this now. I've dealt with this past stuff. I've now got the person that I really know I want to be with, and he's a great person. So now I'm looking forward. Yeah. And again, with the book, presenting this second half of actually, it's like Omi Shadi, Bernie Scott, that we had on a couple of weeks ago. She said it's a new iteration of yourself. It's like the new evolution. Mm-hmm. And so you've kind of let go of all of those layers and moving into this new phase. And you talked kind of a lot about the role of HRT within that, and it's not for everybody, but for you it kind of was a bit of a game changer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's been massive, absolutely. It was and also that's why I wrote the book, because a lot of women, it's been hard, not only with the supply, the demand and supply recently, but also getting the right diagnosis for women for so long. It's getting better. Doctors are getting, they're understanding more. And us women are going to the doctors and knowing what we need. We're writing a list of our signs and symptoms. We're kind of going there and be like, I'm 45 and over. This is what's happening to me. Can I please have my HRT? So yeah, it took me a while to get the right HRT. It took me until my fourth doctor to get the right HRT, and I spent a lot of money in that process as well. So another area that I wanted to write about, so it could hopefully fast track women's diagnosis and also save them a lot of money as well. Because I threw a lot of money at it, which kind of pisses me off now, but I've written it all down, so hopefully women won't make the same mistakes I made. But yeah, HRT's been a game changer. It wasn't until I got with Dr. Naomi Potter that she prescribed the right HRT for me, and no doctor gave me estrogen prior to Naomi, which baffles me, because we all know that it's the estrogen that is one of the main factors for all the symptoms.
Of this,
Absolutely, we have estrogen receptors everywhere, and that's why we all, like, I hate the word suffer, but we all have very different perimenopause journeys, very different symptoms, varied symptoms, some of the more common ones and some of the lesser known ones like vertigo and tinnitus, things like that. But it's all there in the book, and yes, it has helped me a lot. So I take Lenzetto spray, which I had to take quite a lot in the beginning to kind of lift my estrogen levels, but now I really don't have to take that much. So I think it's just about just getting those levels right, and I definitely feel better than I ever have, because mentally I'm so much stronger, and I've, like you said, I've purged a lot of the guilt and the shame and the things that have happened to me, holding on to repressed memories and situations that didn't serve me, and putting all that to bed. and just moving forward.
And moving forward, like with kindness.
Yeah.
You know, you write this beautiful list of affirmations, which are so lovely. And again, that was another part where I was like, crying. You know, you're saying like just all the things that I am this, I am powerful, I'm just all these beautiful words. And then you've got another one where you say, you know, I'm courageous and I'm strong and I'm a fighter and so are you. And I was like, that really got me. I know, but it really got me. I was like, yes, I am. You know, and I think just having, like I said, that practice, because you talk a lot about energy and self-care in this next phase, and how you really do have to be dedicated to yourself. You do have to be strict, and you do have to turn inwards to go through this next phase, kind of coming out liking who you are and appreciating all of your brilliance. You've got to look after yourself. And I can tell from the book, it has been a long road for you on that journey. But now, you know, with our listeners, where do women start with that? I know, I've read your book, but like, what would you say?
Well, so self-acceptance is huge, and it's hard. It's really hard to like who you are. I think especially when you're going through this turbulent time, when you're confused, you're not sleeping, you're multitasking so much. Maybe you're a mum and you're taking your kids to school and to football and to dance class and then picking them up and then doing dinner. And, you know, it's a lot. And I think we have to put ourselves at the top of that list. And I know that comes so unnaturally to women because we are just givers, we are pleasers, we just want to do, and we've been able to multitask for so long. We're like juggling plates, and that's fine, but I don't think that's actually healthy in the long run, and I don't think that it's good for us, especially at this time in our lives. We get to this point where the fuse is so short, we've stretched ourselves so thin, and we just literally, you scratch beneath the surface and you'll just explode. So it's about slowing everything down. It's about putting yourself at the top of the list. It's about having routine. Routine is what is so good for us. Babies love it. We need it. You know, we need to make sure that we are looking after ourselves first and foremost, because otherwise you just can't give to the best of your ability to the people around you. So that would be my first port of call, would be to stick yourself right at the top of that list. What do you need today? What do you need right now? Write lists. Have your routine. You know, look at the whole 360 approach to your life, and what areas are really causing you stress, what areas are triggering you. You know, is it the lack of sleep? Why is that? Like, let's look at coffee, let's look at caffeine, let's look at stimulants, let's look at alcohol. Like, it's about getting a really lovely balance. But I think that we have to be honest with ourselves, and just slow the hell down so you can see the bigger picture. You can see what's going wrong, and what you need to change. So obviously movement is really important. We need to move. We need to eat well. All of those two things help with sleep. You know, it all has a positive knock-on effect. And so, yeah, there's so many things. And then there's breath work. And then there's, after the breath work, you start sort of manifesting what you want, having a calmer outlook, being able to process stress a little bit more, being able to incorporate those the affirmations, so that you, like, today I am calm, I am happy, I'm peaceful. Even if you do it before bed, just to help switch your brain off. There's so many different things, but I think routine is so important. And writing lists. Writing those lists, getting everything down that you need to do.
I absolutely love a list. I like to tick things off. It makes me feel good. I enjoy it. I'm like, oh, look at me, what I achieved today.
It's like such good wins. You're like, tick, tick, tick. But if you don't do it, don't worry about it. Just flip it over to the next day and be like, I'll just add that to that page, to that day. No pressure. You just kind of just get on top of things a little bit more.
It is that taking the pressure off, isn't it? It's like we've had so much pressure on our shoulders for so long. And as you were saying, you know, I suppose kind of where 50 and 40 was kind of 20, 30 years ago, it isn't what it is now. It's we are doing more for longer.
We live longer.
You know, we live longer. We're kind of more active. You know, when I think about when my nana was 50, she did not look like you. Do you know what I mean? And when my nana was 40, she didn't look like me either. So it was like those, she seemed old. But that's not who we are now. It's not who we are as like human beings. We've evolved so much, and obviously what we do and our lifestyles. So we need to be able to kind of acknowledge that, I think, as well, because there is a biological thing still going on. That's the bit we can't change. Even though the outside we can kind of change, and we can probably change our mindset, we still have to kind of put the two together and go, actually, I've got to accept that I can't kind of do everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It doesn't mean that I'm failing, I'm lacking, I'm any of those things. I can still be a powerhouse.
Absolutely.
But I've just got to give myself a longer lead time.
Just be kinder to yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, just acknowledge what you've done, acknowledge where you're going, and just go slowly. Like I said, it's like we are getting old. It doesn't mean we have to slow down like completely. Like we can still go out there and like boss it and own it. And that's why the book is called Just Getting Started, because I think once you've got ownership of how you want to live your life, eliminating certain things, whatever they may be, whether it's negative people, whether it's just, you know, too much coffee that's leaving you really jittery, and then you're like the spinning ball, you just can't focus at all. You just need to eliminate the stuff that makes you unhappy and just focus on the things that make you happy. And just live your best life. Like, don't feel that you need to just fade into the background and disappear. You know, we look fantastic. We just want to feel the best we possibly can, and that just means just eliminating certain things and just making better choices.
Making better choices and not rushing things, and giving ourselves time to breathe and time to acknowledge and, you know, move through this phase. And I think when we can do that collectively, though, and I feel like this has been the problem before, we've not been able to do it as a collective. It's been kind of quite shut down, shameful, let's not talk about it. Oh, let's not, even now I worry sometimes. I'm like, oh, do I talk about perimenopause too much? Do I, you know, why? I shouldn't even bother about that. You know, nobody bothers if you talk about pregnancy too much, or periods, or anything like that. Yeah,
pregnancy is celebrated, and, and as it should be, because it's an absolute blessing and it's fantastic. But it's like, you know, all the sort of symptoms that you get associated with pregnancy, you're like, oh, brain fog, baby brain, rah rah. It's the same as perimenopause, really. You've got this huge influx of hormones, and then they leave your body, and then you've got that post natal depression. Is it called postpartum? Yeah. So it's like, you know, that's the shift. That's that really aggressive roller coaster of hormones that happens in perimenopause. You just, this surges. So it's all of the same. I mean, hormones just basically have got so much to answer for.
You say that right at the start.
I say really like rude things about hormones,
like,
because
things are changing. Yeah, you talk about the hormones.
I'm like, can we just talk about hormones that have literally just ruled my life? Whether it's like that horrible periods and just feeling out of sorts, and the pain, and then the perimenopause, and then pregnancy for some women. So it's they're just little disruptors basically that have just tried to mess things up.
Just mess a lot of stuff up. And you know, it's like what you were saying about them. I've said this before. It really frustrates me that brain fog is treated differently to baby brain. Yeah. Because essentially they are the same thing, but in the workplace, then especially, they're not treated the same. And it's very frustrating. You know, both you and I have worked on live television. It's very pressurized. You've got to kind of know everything. I've done shows, and you've done your breakfast show. It's a very pressurized environment, but there is no room for error in a perimenopausal phase. No. But there are more allowances, I think, in a pregnancy phase. And I do think that has to change in the workplace, for sure.
It absolutely does, because you just get the eye roll, don't you? If you talk about it like, oh, God, don't talk to her. She might have sensitive, or she's a woman possessed. It's like, you know, it's
shut up. Or
don't upset her. Oh, just give her the day off. You know, there's not enough support, but there's not enough education. Like, it needs to start in schools. It needs to start way back, back, so that young boys understand what's happening, as do the little girls, you know. Yeah. We know what's coming next. We never get taught this in school, you know. So now we're talking about it so openly. It's still going to take a little bit of time for the people in the workplace, for those workplace policies to be in place, so there is areas for women to go, people to go, to speak to get the advice, the support, the time off that they potentially need, just to get this under control. You know, it's just a little blip in a lady's life, in a woman's life.
That's it. That's the thing. It's a phase. It is a transitional phase. And then you've got all the rest of this life to lead, which I find, like, you think, we were talking about it at our event, where somebody said, you know what, you're probably going to spend more of your life kind of in the post reproductive years, because we're living longer than previously. So you're like, well, I'm not going to be done then. That's a long time. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a long time to plan this next phase and to go through into it. I mean, you know, for you now, kind of where you're at now, what are your future ambitions? Like, what do you want to do? Like, I mean, I want to read more from
I
you.
want to do it all.
I want you to write more. You write so beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. I do. Do you know what? It's so weird. I really like writing, and I didn't think that. I always loved literature. I'm not the best at spelling, so I just didn't ever know that I could actually get it out. But I loved it so much. It was fantastic. Not only was it cathartic, but I really enjoyed the process. So I think I've got another couple of books in me for sure. I've got I've got a novel that I'd like to write because I've got some great ideas, and then I've got a little children's little book that I'm working on in my head as well. George and I have been talking about it because I keep coming up with all these little ideas. There's documentaries that I want to make, more on hormones, more on food associated with hormones. I'd like to do a course in nutrition. I really would like to do that because I love cooking, obviously, and I love my food, and I just love the kind of the connection between nourishing ourselves and food. Slimming it down a bit, obviously smaller portions, things that we have to do that we all know we have to do in order to look and feel the best we can going into perimenopause and menopause. There's loads. I'm just getting started, babe. I'm just getting goddamn started.
She's literally just getting started because like I was saying, I would read all of it, and I'm so glad you've said that you would like to write more because it is a beautiful writing style, and it's so friendly and reassuring and kind. Like you jump off the page, and I've said it right at the beginning. I just felt like you are the best friend that everyone needs because you're there going, it's all right, come on, come with me. Don't get to cry.
I know, we've got tissues at the ready.
I know, and it's like,
but when you, because I sent you the manuscript before, obviously the book was released, and you were like, I've already started crying. I was like, oh no, we're going to be bawling our eyes out at the report.
Literally, it was I think you, and I really know it's going to do brilliantly, and you are already, but you should be so proud of it because it really is like, I want all of my friends to have it. I want to go, look here, have this and know it's going to be okay. Have it and know that you're going to be fine. And she talks about this and you need to do that. And you can see this lady and this lady might help you and Reiki might help you because you do offer up so many different things in it.
And I've been lucky that there's experts in the book too. So, Dr. Charlotte Gooding in the sex part, the sexy time part, which is great. And then my trainer Paul, and then Dr. Tim Spector and Dr. Megan Rossi talks about gut health. So really lucky. And obviously Naomi's in there, who's like my little ride or die now. She's fantastic. So Dr. Naomi Potter gives lots of advice on HRT. I'm lucky that the experts were kind enough to lend me their time.
It is it's so useful, it's so brilliant, and I could sit here and talk to you for hours about this, but literally it's like I'm just looking, I'm going, I've run out of time now, and there's so much more that, there's so many parts of it that I'm glad in a way that we haven't kind of unpicked, because I just want the reader to have that same experience that I did, which was just, like I said, I felt really seen. It reaffirmed a lot of things that I was feeling myself, and I would absolutely recommend it to everyone. So thank you so much for coming to see us and for giving me your time and for writing such a bloody brilliant book.
Thank you. You've made me cry now officially. Thank you so much, honey. Thank you.
Oh, well, we've got to end today, guys. Thank you so much for being with us. If you would like to get Lisa's book, it is available online and at all good bookshops. Just getting started. Make sure you do get it. Also, if you want to follow her at Instagram, it's at Lisa_Snowdon, where you can catch up with her chats on Self-Care Sunday, and also chats with Dr. Naomi Potter, who is brilliant and has also been on the podcast this series, so she's absolutely fantastic. So do go and follow Lisa if you don't already. If you want more well-being, fashion and beauty, you can also follow us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can catch up with our previous podcast episodes by subscribing to the In Conversation page or any of our podcast channels and YouTube. You can also leave us a message at Instagram at Official Capsule if you want to comment on this episode, any future episodes, if you want to pose a question to anyone, or just give us comments on everything that we've got going on, basically. I will be back next week with another very special guest, but all that's left for us to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye to gorgeous Lisa.
Goodbye. Thank you, Natalie.
And goodbye from me.